We did air band for a while because we had to get our posture down, we had to get our hand positions down, and just our knowledge of our buzz tone or our embouchure. So we started with just our head joints and mouthpieces only. So I'm asking the kids to pull off their barrel or their mouthpieces, and we're going to make some tones that we started off with. Now in our percussion section, we started off with just the mallets, so we're actually playing a few notes during the class. And so choose a note and give us the roll that we started with. Just let's go with an F. Okay, roll. Okay, so thank you. So that's what it sounded like in the mallets. Then I asked for the bass player to play any note. You got to go open D. All right, trombones ended up with an F, or a buzz tone, excuse me. Your buzz tone, here we go. That's good buzz tone. All right, trumpets had a buzz tone. Okay, it gets really cool. All right, so then saxophones get the squawk. But then we hear a lot more from the clarinets. And then the flutes. Okay. So now, wait, yeah, all right, yeah, we got that far. All right, so we got that far. It took us about a week to do that all together. So then we started doing some things together with our mouthpieces. Then came putting the instruments together. It took about 15 minutes for the clarinets to put theirs together the first time out because we have so many parts on our instruments. We're going to put our instruments back together. For flutes, it was pretty easy. They had 3 pieces. Clarinets had the mouthpiece, the barrel, the top joint, the bottom joint, the bell, that reed and ligature. So they had 7 parts they had to put together. Flutes had 3, saxophones had 3, trumpets, I don't know what we would have done without this. They have their mouthpiece and their instrument. So they just had to slot that in there. And the trombones had 3 pieces to take care of, and, well, the bass player just pulled it out of the bag and plugged it in. And then the percussion grabbed their mallets, and then they were in front of the percussion. So, oh, yeah. All right, so after that, we then started learning some new notes, and we learned the first 5 pitches before we even started reading the notes in our book. So we did this warm-up scale. We're going to do our warm-up scale. So your children learn the first 5 notes without the book, because that way we can focus our everything that we had on producing the right tone. And this is what it sounds like. How to start the tone. We had to make sure we had the right embouchure, how it's supposed to be, the mouthpiece in relation to the face or the grip. And then we had to make sure we were sitting up correctly. We had to make sure we were breathing properly. We spent a lot of time out in the hallway with pieces of paper on the wall actually blowing and trying to make sure that we're playing from the diaphragm. And then we had to make sure we added the element of tapping their foot to keep time. All of that happens in 1 split second, which makes this all the more reason why the kids who take band are often doing much better academically, because it improves their reading and math skills, their spatial reasoning, their attendance at school, their cooperation and teamwork. And what it does for them, it is the only whole brain activity they participate in all day. So when they get to my class, they're using their whole brain. All right, so it's wonderful to see what they've been able to do so far. So now we're going to do 1 through 6. These are the first 6 exercises they learn. There's 3 notes, and we're going to kind of do it fast forward for you. notes and rest they have to learn to do. We forever lots of laughter when we're talking about when we miss rests and we're trying to count out the long tones that we're supposed to play. So it's a lot of focus and concentration. So then we explored, the next thing was number 7 in our textbook, which is called solo and solo feature with the band. So we have 4 featured solos this evening. Could those 4 solos stand up, please? Okay, so we're going to, the first soloist is going to be Jocelyn on the trombone. All right, and then our second soloist is Angelina on flute. Our third soloist will be Kennedy on saxophone, and our fourth soloist will be Alex on trumpet. Okay, so listen for the solo sound. See? Some other things while we're playing. So now we're going to string together a few notes, and we're also going to add a breath mark. It's really interesting because breathing is something we do every day. However, when you're breathing as a musician, it's completely different than how you're breathing when you're breathing every day. So that's something that we had to learn how to do. So there's a marking, like the road map, and where they are told to breathe at specific times. So we're going to actually combine the 2 long tone exercises that we did in this. It's called Good Neighbors, and mix them up. Okay? Learning how to tongue on our instrument correctly. One of the things that we learned to do in our clarinet section and our saxophone section, we have a saying that we use called tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed. If they don't use the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed, we get a sound instead of a ta sound. And then the trumpets, flutes, and low voices have to make sure that they're hitting the tongue on the bumpy part above their teeth and their gum. So that way we get a clear, crisp at the beginning of the tone. And so number 10, called 4 in a row, introduces that concept of tonguing as well as the idea of quarter notes getting 1 beat each. We just learned how to tongue notes, and then we were introduced to duets. And so what we're going to do is divide it. We have a woodwind section in the band, so woodwinds, raise your hands. Okay. Then we have our brass section, which we include our bass guitar in, and then we have our percussion section, which is back there. Okay, so then what we do is divide them up. So what you're going to hear is their first duet, where they're actually practicing those quarter notes, but also doing some teamwork by playing 2 different things. Successfully navigate the duet, then we moved on to actually playing a whole song without any rest whatsoever, and this is the result. It's called Take 5. 5 weeks into the school year, and then I held the auditions for the percussion to start using battery percussion. And it was really refreshing to have all of them pass their audition in the first 5 weeks. And one of the kids was saying, well, she passes everybody. No, I don't. If you're not getting the mallets and you're not reading the notes like we're supposed to on step, because before we actually get them to go to the battery, they got to be able to read the notes, because they're playing more than one instrument all the time. So then, now that we've introduced the mallets and the snare and bass drum, then we start to introduce things like triangle and the sleigh bells and lots of other equipment. So they're already pulling double duty. At this point in the exercise that we're doing now called Moving On Down, the kids pick up another note, and the percussionists learn to do accents where they stress the note. So now we're pretty much up to 5 notes in the book, and the kids have to know those. So we do flashcards on a regular basis. Ask your kids sometime to bring home the flashcards and test them and see how well they do, showing you the fingering. Help them out. And then the other thing you should ask them all the time is, where's your horn? Gotta practice. Well, Miss Cassie, no, fine. Kids need to practice every day. I just think it's really important for embouchure development, technique development, that they practice on a very regular basis. All right, moving on now. Okay, so then everybody started to feel comfortable. Then we throw half notes at them. So now we have a new term that they have to figure out. So we start off with whole notes that get 4 counts. Then we figured out what quarter notes were. They each get a count. Now we're throwing half notes at them, so they get 2 counts. So there's the math that we're doing. And we talked about fractions, which we figured out some of the kids need work on their fractions. And so we're going to continue to practice through that. So now we got half notes. Half notes, and we're going to do it in duet form. Our next selection now, I think some of you may have heard before. Hot cross buns? Oh, yeah. Yeah? Okay. See, they know it. Okay? So make sure that they can recognize it. Our next song that we're going to do for you is called Au Clair de la Lune, and this is just starting to get us into the multiculturalism of music. This is a French folk tune, and we talked about patterns in this one, where they would start to find repeated patterns in music. Music is, we talk about the challenge of music, but it's nothing more than 13 notes and 25 rhythm patterns. And so once we know those 13 notes and 25 rhythm patterns, we'll continue practicing for a lifetime. All right, so 18 is Au Clair de la Lune. Did you guys recognize that tune too? Au Clair de la Lune? No? Yay, we got one person there. All right, our next song that we're going to play is Jingle Bells. So we're going to set you guys up for the Christmas season, since the Christmas decorations are already being sold in the stores anyway. And we're going to introduce, hold those up there, guys, the sleigh bells. And so this is the first time they're introduced to some auxiliary percussion, and that's going to bring about a little bit more of the Christmas feel and spirit as we play Jingle Bells. One of the biggest challenges for our kids was to not sing the song in their head while they're playing it, thereby changing the rhythms that are actually on the page. Require them to read 2 lines of music. A lot of times there's a challenge going from the end of one line to the beginning of the next. All right, so now we also explore the world of composition. Composition not as writing an essay, but composition writing music. So one of the exercises in our book requires us to play it by ear and figure it out, and then write down our notes and rhythms, and then we shared them with each other in class. So when we got ready for the concert, we auditioned various people, and Shane is going to play his composition that he figured out. Yay! So Shane's going to play on the mouths open. Okay, here's that lovely song we've been working on at 21. All right, we're going to do Hand Clappers March, and in this one, we had the challenge of now another time signature. We've been playing in 4/4, so we count to 4 all the time. Now we got to count to 2 and keep moving. So we have half notes, we have quarter notes, and then we have to make sure that we don't breathe too long on our breath mark. And then at the same time, part of the band's going to be clapping, so it's called Hand Clappers March. Then we had a piece called Better Than the Rest, and it requires us to really figure out how not to play on the rest. So what we end up doing is one of the standard practices in class is to clap, and then we actually play the line after we clap it, just so that we can hear it and see what rhythms we're playing. So we're going to actually clap number 22 for you, called Better Than the Rest, and then we'll play it for you. Exploring more multicultural things, traditional carols and whatnot, we're going to get into something called a repeat sign. At the end of their line of music, they see these 2 dots, and that tells them, oh, I've got to follow that sign, so now I've got to go back to the beginning of that line and play it again. So this is our first exploration of repeats. It's called Good King Wenceslas. We talked about dropping sticks today. That's cute. All right, so we're going to do our next thing that we learned to do. How many of you can remember back to elementary when you'd sit there and sing songs like Are You Sleeping, Brother John? And you do it in a round where you say, Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping? You know, so you do it at different times. It's called a round or canon. And we had this song called Donkey Round. And in Donkey Round, we actually split the band in half and play this as a round. So let's see if you can hear the tune go through and successfully. It's one thing to be able to sing that in a general music class in the elementary, but to be able to play it on your instruments and be able to hear each other and go through that process, it's quite impressive. Our next selection that we're going to perform for you, again, explores the multiculturalism of music, and we just added another element called a tie. That means we're going to join more than one note, same pitch, together. So they could have two half notes or a half note, whole note, quarter note, and they just had to add all those values together and be able to hold the right number of counts and then continue playing. So Mary Ann is the Jamaican folk tune that we're going to be using for that. Are learning to play with the snare on and snare off. They got a couple of different pitches, and they're also now learning other rhythmic techniques called paradiddles. It's a sticking method. So they would have to go 4/8. Those would be right, left, right, right, or left, right, left, left. Okay, and then we're moving on to Shoe Fly, which is another version of the ties, another folk song. It's an American folk song, and this one explores again 2/4 time, and it also throws at them a repeat. Our next portion of the book that we're exploring now, we're subdividing our quarter notes into two called eighth notes. So now when they're tapping their foot, they actually have to think about the downbeat and the upbeat. So they have to play ta, 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 ta. And sometimes we get into almost like you have a squared off wheel. It goes ta 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 ta. So we have to learn to evenly divide the beat. Ta 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 ta. So we ended up doing some clapping, and then we played an exercise that has that. We're now up to 6 notes. So we've completed all of our flashcards so far. We have 6 pitches that we're working on, and fingerings and reading the notes. The kids are reading a universal language, so they're learning a new language, and it's called music, and that's something they can have with them for a lifetime. Challenge that comes into play here is actually making sure that we can tongue our instruments properly, because articulation plays a huge part of this next piece. It's called Violin Cabbage Down. It's an American fiddle tune, and it has a series of the same pitches, the same 8 notes, and they have to make sure that they're playing the right number of 8 notes, but then they throw them a musical curve, and they have to actually play the different 8 notes at the same time. So they got to do the same ta 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 ta, then they have to go ta 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 ta, and they have to change their fingers much faster. So this is the challenge for them in Violin Cabbage Down. One of the other things that we talked about was a little bit of history. The next selection we're playing for you is called Surprise Symphony, and it's Franz Joseph Haydn composed this simple piece. And I told the story to the kids about Franz Joseph Haydn had a good sense of humor. People back in the late 1700s would go to the concert hall, which you were all dolled up, and I said we're talking about the layers of clothing they had, and they didn't have anything called air conditioning back in the day. So when they were getting to these beautiful concerts, these composers worked very, very long and diligent hours in putting this thing together. And the worst thing that they could see from the musician perspective is that people were falling asleep. And so he decided to play a little joke on his audience one day. They're playing along this beautiful symphonic piece, and then he would just do this accent that would just startle the entire audience. And so they would be sitting there like nodding off, and also they're up. And if you could see that perspective from ours, it's really hilarious. And so then they would start falling asleep again, and then he would do that same thing with the accent. So this is Surprise Symphony. We had our own accent in here just so you kind of get the idea of how they did it. So that was exploring also a thing called theme and variation. They did a little variation on the second part. We kind of got our accents in there. We'll work on it. All right, and our next selection that we have is actually 2 of our flute players right here on the end. Elena and Angelina are going to play London Bridge, and what they're going to be doing is playing 2 different parts in harmony, and some of it will be together, some of it will be totally independent. is the biggest surprise that the kids wanted to give to you guys. They actually learned an entire piece of sheet music that's in their book. It takes a couple minutes to go through it, which means they have to focus, focus, focus. I think they've done an outstanding job so far, being very well behaved. That's concert etiquette. Yeah. So performance ethics. All right, and so what we're going to do is play through this tune. We've got two of our people playing sleigh bells. And this is called a holiday sampler, and it's got a few different Christmas tunes that are wrapped in it. And it actually gives independence to our low voices. Our low voices are actually going to be playing on their own a little bit. And so this is where we start to separate and be able to play more sophisticated music. Before I have them play this last piece, I would like to thank you for supporting your child's interest in music, particularly in band, because if you ever look at the research that's behind that, you know how beneficial band is for kids in terms of their reading, spatial, math skills, and beyond that, teamwork, cooperation, and all that. So it's a wonderful whole brain activity, and because they're picking up an instrument before the age of 13, they will have many more neural pathways created in their brain, and they will become much smarter. All right, so that's a wonderful tribute too. So you guys need to give your parents a round of applause for it. And at the end of the concert, we have the chairs that you're sitting on. We ask that you give us a hand. We have racks in the back of the room. We just need to put them on their sideways, not straight up and down, but sideways. If you lend a hand by doing that, that really helps us out because we're quite short-handed with our custodial staff. Okay, I hope you enjoy this. These kids worked very hard on this concert. This is... Thank you. Now I can't wait for them to play this for its holiday sampler.